Jacob had 12 sons, 12 bloodlines, 12 possible threads through which the most important life in all of human history could have arrived. And if you were standing outside this story, looking in, you would not have chosen Judah. You would have chosen Joseph, the one his father loved most, the dreamer, the one who saved an entire civilization from famine. He was wise, patient, morally disciplined in ways that make the rest of his brothers look reckless. Or maybe Levi, the priestly line, set apart for generations to stand between God and the people. Or Reuben, the firstborn, the natural heir. But the Lion of the tribe of Judah is not a title that belongs to Joseph or Levi or Reuben. It belongs to Jesus, and Jesus came through Judah, a man who sold his own brother into slavery, who deceived his father-in-law, whose story, read plainly and honestly, looks less like a credential and more like a disqualification. So why him? That question is not small, and the answer is going to change the way you read the entire Bible. To understand why Judah was chosen, you first have to understand the world he was born into, because we tend to romanticize this family in ways the text simply does not support. Jacob had 12 sons by 4 different women, 2 wives, 2 concubines. One household held together by tension, competition, and a favoritism so blatant it was woven into the fabric of daily life. Jacob gave Joseph a coat. He gave the others labor. Think about what that does over years. To a child who watches his father's eyes light up differently for one brother, who learns early that love in this house is not equally distributed. Judah was the 4th son. Not the firstborn, that was Reuben. Not the favored, that was Joseph. Not set apart for sacred purpose, that would eventually be Levi. In his father's hierarchy, Judah was unremarkable. And unremarkable men, under years of accumulated pressure and resentment, sometimes make decisions they spend the rest of their lives trying to outrun. To understand Judah's election, you have to understand the family he was born into. Because Jacob's household was not a peaceful one. This was a family forged in competition, deception, and desperate love. Jacob himself had deceived his own father to steal a blessing. His wives, Leah and Rachel, had spent years locked in a silent war over who could give him more sons. Children were born into that tension, raised in it, shaped by it, and then there were the 12. Reuben was the firstborn. In the ancient world, that meant everything: the inheritance, the blessing, the leadership of the next generation. First position wasn't just a title, it was destiny. Then came Simeon, then Levi, then Judah, 4th in line. By birth order alone, Judah wasn't even close to the front of the line. But birth order in this family had a way of meaning nothing. Jacob's father Isaac was a 2nd son. Jacob himself was a 2nd son. The pattern in Genesis is relentless. God keeps reaching past the expected heir to find the one he's actually preparing. And this time, the stakes couldn't be higher. Because embedded in Jacob's household, in one of these 12 bloodlines, was the most significant promise in human history. The Messiah would come. Not an idea, not a concept, a person, born from this specific family, through a specific line. Which son? The text doesn't tell Jacob immediately, but it's building, slowly, deliberately, toward a moment of revelation that most people read past without realizing what they're seeing. Let's be honest about something. If you were placing a bet on which son carried the messianic line, you would almost certainly pick Joseph. And you'd have every reason to. Joseph was Jacob's beloved, the son of Rachel, the wife Jacob actually wanted. The boy who received the ornate coat, a garment that symbolized Jacob's intention to give him the double portion, the authority, the future. Joseph had dreams. Literal prophetic dreams that the text validates. His brothers would bow to him, the sun and moon and stars would honor him. And every single one of those dreams came true. He was sold into slavery and became 2nd in command of Egypt. Falsely accused and imprisoned, and still rose. He fed the known world during a 7-year famine. He is, by every measure, the theological giant of the book of Genesis. So why doesn't the scepter pass through Joseph? Because God was not building a dynasty of the gifted. He was building a dynasty of the transformed. And here is where we have to stop and look at Judah honestly. Not the Sunday school version. The actual man on the page. Judah is the one who suggested selling Joseph. Read that again. Not in a heat of passion moment, not in some impulsive rage. He calculated it. He monetized his brother's suffering. He looked at the Ishmaelite traders, looked at Joseph in that pit, and said, "What profit is it if we kill him? Let's sell him instead." 20 pieces of silver, the same brother he'd grown up with, the same boy his father wept over for years. Judah made that decision, and then he went home. And then, almost as if the text is watching him unravel, Judah leaves his brothers, separates himself, goes to live among the Canaanites, marries outside the covenant, loses 2 sons to judgment, mistakes his daughter-in-law for a prostitute. She deceives him to receive what he'd withheld from her. He is caught, publicly, in moral collapse. And he has to stand in front of his community and say the 4 words no one ever wants to say, "She is more righteous than I." Think about what that moment costs a man. He didn't spin it. He didn't deflect. He didn't construct a version of events where he came out looking better. He just told the truth. And something cracked open in him. Fast forward. Joseph has not revealed himself yet. He is still the Egyptian official who has his brothers in terror. Benjamin, the youngest, Rachel's other son, Jacob's last surviving connection to his beloved, is about to be taken into Egyptian custody, falsely accused of stealing. And Jacob, already hollowed out by decades of grief, would not survive it. This is the moment. Judah steps forward. And what comes out of his mouth is, quietly, one of the most staggering speeches in the entire Old Testament. He stands in front of the most powerful man he's ever encountered, a man who has already shown he can destroy them. And Judah says, "Please, my lord, let your servant remain here as a slave in place of the boy. Let him go back with his brothers."
He offers himself.
The man who once sold a brother now offers himself as a ransom for one. That should stop you cold. This is not a small change. This is not a man tweaking his habits. This is a full reversal, a moral resurrection, happening in real time in the middle of a political crisis. And when Joseph hears this, when he watches Judah stand there and make that offer, he breaks down completely. He clears the room. He weeps so loudly the Egyptians outside can hear him. And through his tears he says, "I am Joseph." The reunion doesn't happen because Joseph decides to forgive. It happens because Judah became someone who could earn it. The transformation was the key. Now watch what Jacob does at the end of his life. In Genesis 49, he calls all 12 sons to his deathbed. He's going to speak a prophetic word over each of them. And when he gets to Judah, 4th in line, the betrayer, the one with the collapsed moral history, he says something extraordinary. "The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come." The scepter, not the wealth that went to Joseph's sons Ephraim and Manasseh, who received the double portion. Not the priesthood that went to Levi, the ruler's staff, the governmental authority, the line through which kings would come, and through which the King of Kings would come. 1 Chronicles 5 actually makes this explicit. It notes that Reuben lost the birthright, the double inheritance because of his sin, and it was given to Joseph's sons. But then it says this, almost parenthetically, "Though Judah was the strongest of his brothers, and a ruler came from him, the rights of the firstborn belonged to Joseph." 2 different inheritances, 2 different sons. Joseph got the provision, Judah got the crown. And it's not coincidence that the shape of Judah's life, the betrayal, the moral collapse, the painful self-recognition, the transformation, the substitutionary sacrifice, mirrors with uncanny precision what his descendant would one day do on a hill outside Jerusalem. Jesus from the tribe of Judah would stand before power. He would be accused. And he would offer himself in the place of others. The tribe was chosen because the man became the prototype. Here's what most people miss. Joseph is the beloved son. He's the one whose story feels messianic. Sold, suffering, raised to glory, saving the world through his provision. And theologians are right that Joseph is a type of Christ in many ways. But Joseph never suffered because of his own failure. He was innocent every step of the way. Judah wasn't. Judah's transformation cost him something. It required him to sit in his own guilt long enough to let it change him. To say, "She's more righteous than I" in public. To stand before Egyptian power and offer his own freedom for someone else's. And that's the lineage God chose. Not perfect pedigree, not flawless moral record, transformed character. Because here's the thing about grace. Grace doesn't look for the most qualified candidate. It looks for the one who has been broken enough to understand what it means to be someone else's substitute. Judah sold a brother for 20 pieces of silver, and his descendant, 1,000 years later, would be sold for 30. And then he would offer himself, willingly, in the place of everyone. Read that lineage again. It's not a family tree, it's a theology. In the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, the final vision of John on the island of Patmos, an angel makes an announcement. There is a scroll, sealed with 7 seals. No one in all of heaven or earth is worthy to open it. John weeps, and then the angel says, "Do not weep." See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, not the tribe of Joseph, the provider, not the tribe of Levi, the priests, not the tribe of Reuben, the firstborn. Judah, the 4th son, the one who sold his brother. The one who spent time in our moral collapse and came back different. The one who stood in front of power and said, "Take me instead." God didn't choose the cleanest bloodline. He chose the one that told the truest story. Because the gospel has never been about the people who had it together. It's always been about the ones who didn't. And what happened to them when grace got hold of them anyway. So the next time you read a genealogy and wonder why God's choices don't make sense, remember Judah. Remember that the scepter didn't go to the gifted. It didn't go to the favored. It went to the one who finally understood what it meant to give himself away. And 2,000 years later, his descendant stood in a garden, knowing exactly what was coming, and said, "Not my will, but yours." The Lion of Judah, it was always going to be him, deliberate, unhurried. The final line lands as a statement, not a question. Let it sit. We spend a lot of time wondering why God chooses the people he chooses. Why not the more obvious candidate? Why not the cleaner story? Why not the brother with fewer scars on his record? Judah's story answers that, not with comfort, but with something that cuts much deeper. God does not archive his purposes for your life after your worst moment. He waits to see what you do next. Judah sold his brother. And then, decades later, he offered himself for his brother. That reversal is what Genesis 49 was recognizing, not the sin, the return. And when Jesus arrived, born of that lineage, born into that specific, complicated, broken and rebuilt bloodline, he was the living conclusion to everything Judah's story had been pointing toward for centuries. God did not choose the cleanest name in the family. He chose the one who had fallen the furthest and found his way back. Because that is the whole point of Jesus. He does not come through the righteous. He comes through the repentant. There's a moment in Revelation that most people read too fast. John is on an island, exiled, alone, the last of the disciples still breathing. And in a vision, he sees a scroll, sealed with 7 seals, and an angel asks the question that silences all of heaven. Who is worthy to open it? No one answers. Not the angels, not the elders, not the patriarchs, not the prophets, no one. And John, this old man who had outlived everyone he loved, who had watched his closest friend die on a Roman cross, who had spent his final years in isolation, John begins to weep. Because if no one can open the scroll, it means history has no answer. It means suffering has no resolution. It means the story ends without meaning. And then an elder touches his shoulder and says 4 words that change everything. Do not weep. See the Lion of the tribe of Judah, not the tribe of Joseph. Not the brilliant one, not the favored one, not the one whose whole life looked like divine endorsement from the outside. Judah, the 4th son, the one who spent years running from the weight of what he'd done, the one who collapsed morally, publicly, completely, and had to stand in front of everyone and say the hardest sentence a human being can say, "I was wrong." That bloodline, that name, that is the name the angel calls out at the end of all things. And I need you to sit with what that means, not theologically, not academically, personally. Because somewhere in your life, there is a pit, something you did that you cannot undo, something you chose that cost someone else, a version of yourself you are not proud of, a moment you replay and wish you could reach back and change. And the enemy of your soul has been telling you that disqualifies you, that the gifted ones, the clean ones, the ones who never fell that far, they get used, they get chosen. You just get to watch. But God didn't write Judah out of the story. He wrote him into the center of it. He took the betrayal and let it break Judah open. He took the collapse and used it to build character that Joseph, for all his brilliance, never had to develop. He took the moment Judah said, "Take me instead of him," and recognized in it the echo of something that hadn't happened yet. A hill, a cross, a choice made willingly, not my will, but yours. Judah's line didn't produce the Messiah despite his failure. It produced him through the man Judah became after it. That is not a small distinction. That is the entire gospel. So if you are watching this and you feel disqualified, if you have a pit in your past that still has your name on it, if you've been waiting to be good enough before God could use you, remember that the name written over the throne of eternity is not the name of the dreamer. It's not the name of the firstborn. It's not the name of the priest. It is the name of the one who failed, who faced it, who changed, and who, when the moment came, stood in the gap. The lion came from Judah. He was always going to. Because from the very beginning, God wasn't building a story about perfect people. He was building a story about what happens when broken ones finally say yes. Before you close this, I want to ask you one question. Not a theological question. Not a trivia question. A real one. Which brother do you identify with more, Joseph or Judah? The one whose life looked like favor from the outside? Or the one who had to crawl back from something before he could become someone? Put it in the comments and be honest, because the answer tells you something important about where you are right now and where God might actually be trying to take you. If these stories move you, subscribe. We do this every week. And share this one with someone who has been believing the lie that their past disqualifies their future. Because Judah's whole life is the answer to that lie. See you in the next one.